Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome back to Cannon Fodder, the channel for Arsenal fans all over this world. Well, Sunday morning. Well, at least over here in the UK. Yes, bright and breezy, lemon squeezy. Oh my days. We're going to be joined by Tel, the original godfather himself, and of course my brother, who sent me a message. Oh, Alex, where are you? Where are you, Alex? I think I'm right here. I sent you the link. What's going on with you, geezer? What's going on? Sort yourself out. But yeah, we've got some more live news. I'm just trying to add Eltel. Eltel has just kind of come to the building, and of course my brother as well. So we are live, and Sunday morning, bright and breezy and squeezy. Anyway, live segments. We'll see you on the other side of this live music. Yes, good morning, my fellow Gooners, or actually Arsenal fans and fans from all over the world. Although it's a predominantly an Arsenal channel, you find we've got Liverpool supporters, we've got Southampton supporters, Doncaster Rovers, well, everyone, Elton, everyone comes over here on Cannon 4 TV. I don't know why. I don't know why. Anyway, guys, before we get into this one, as usual, please subscribe to this wonderful channel, which is Cannon 4 TV. Hit the bell notification button so you can receive all the latest news right here. Why am I wearing this top? Why am I wearing this top? Because I love Colombia. My wife's Colombian. That's the reason. So don't ask me any questions about this top. Anyway, morning, guys. Morning, lads. Zeltel, how are you, mates?
I'm rocking and rolling, man. I'm just admiring not just the top, but the actual colour. Because I don't know if you've seen it, but there's been they've put out what might be the away kit for next season, and it's a similar yellow. It's a very pale yellow. It's not the deep yellow that we often play in, and it's back to the traditional away colours, and instead of this kind of darkish. Red colour that we're currently playing in. It's gone back to pillar box red, as I used to call it, which I think is great because, when I see teams that play in pillar box red, you immediately think when they run onto the pitch, this is going to be a game. Red is the colour of, winning and aggression and dominance and all those things. So, let's go back to our proper red instead of this deep red. And let's go back to that yellow and blue that we've played in as our away kit for probably 30 years, I would have thought. Yeah.
Yeah. Before going to Ralph, Tel, what do you think about Arsenal having like a third and fourth kit? Surely there's only like two possibilities. We'll play at home and we play away. So surely we only need like two kits, a home kit and away kit.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's a big money spinner. And it's particularly amongst the kids as well. Sorry, my son, when he was about, 7 or 8, I bought him the Arsenal kit, and I never forget the joy he had. And he didn't want to go home; he wanted to hide somewhere and just put it on and go home on the tube wearing it, And then even in later years, you remember that kind of charcoal grey kit that we
Yes.
had, and I bought him that a few years ago. And he absolutely loved it, and he gets it skin tight, like player fit. You've got to have a torso. And but the third, do you know what? I remember in the Arsenal programme years ago, they said, we promise we won't change the kits more than once every 3 years, and it'll be only a home and away kit. And now they've managed to change it every season, and they've got 3 kits, possibly 4. I mean, I do remember us playing Lens at Wembley, and I think we played because their home kit in those days you were allowed, when you were at home, you were allowed to let the away team play in their home kit so that you could see Barcelona and teams in their proper kit, And we played Lens and they played in red and yellow stripes, so that put out our first home kit and our away kit and our usual yellow kit. And we then played in a dark blue, which we had occasionally played in back in the late 60s, and it looked good, but it was only brought out in an emergency, and I don't think you could buy it at the club. It was just, but it's definitely a total money spinner. It's commerciality. gone crazy. I mean, even Raz has changed kit about 3 times. Out of 5 before it is, you know.
Tell, get your kit on, mate. Get your kit on, Tell.
Oh, that's what I normally want to hear.
Get it on.
Oh, dearie me. Ralph, how are you, man? You're right.
Yeah, I'm good. I had to put in the kit change, as it were. If I
Why?
obviously didn't get the memo, so I thought I'd just do a quick kit change. So yeah, if we're gonna go along this route, yeah, I support England. When you live in Wales, it's not a easy tag to carry, even if you're a Londoner. I'll regard myself more of a Londoner than an Englishman, if you look at the definitions. But you know, in London's where I was born and raised, and I remember vaguely remember '66 and all the furore during the '70s of Don Revie taking over the England, you know, being the manager for England. The best manager that we ever missed out on was Brian Clough, because of the way that he'd done 2 European champions back to back. So my identity is all about England, and when you're obviously when you're a ethnic minority in the centre of London, everything, let alone anywhere in the UK, everything's very very much pinned on the way that you are and how you act. So it was good also, you know, to see some black heroes. You know, we had Cyril Regis play for England, Laurie Cunningham, Vivian Anderson. And of course, more of those trailblazers left the door open for our current crop of players as well. So that's my identity. And I know Alex, you know, has to bear allegiance to the Colombian flag, as it were. I'm not going to go there, you know, but for me, that's my, you know, that's my identity. Is so, you know, I'm an England fan. Although I don't really watch much of the matches since post 2010, because the golden age, when everyone talks about the golden age of England, I think, well, what did they do? They didn't win the Euros, they didn't win a World Cup. They're still, you know, the only World Cup they won is back then, and the closest they came to winning the Euros was '96, let alone when trying to get past Germany in 1990. Those are like the pinnacles of English football, because it came at the back end of so much, you know, trouble, as it were, and we all wanted to identify with something, and football just came to the fore then. So yeah, golden age, no, I don't believe in that. It's all about, you know, what you do at this time, and we've been close but not good enough.
Yeah.
As not going to argue.
Tell, get your kit on, mate.
Well, you know, I don't really watch a lot of international football now. I find it substandard. I find, and I have to be careful what I say now, because the Republic of Ireland lost at home to Luxembourg yesterday. So we've plumbed new depths over in Dublin last night. But you know, it's pretty boring. It's I mean, England never seem to do well in recent years, anyway. When they come up against the teams, I don't know. I mean, the only good thing is that all us Arsenal supporters, obviously, we rate all our black players, as you were saying about being an ethnic minority. You know, Ian Wright and all the guys that we've had come through, and thank God that racism hasn't really, you know, it isn't to the fore in football games. And funny enough, I remember watching an All-Ireland semi-final between Clare, who play in colours not dissimilar to what Alex is wearing, yellow and blue. And I remember this guy coming on, and he was a mountain. He was like Jonah Lumu, if you ever recollect him. He was, there wasn't an inch of fat on him, but he's about 6'2" or 3", and just built like a thoroughbred racehorse, you know. And this guy came on, and I looked him up in the program now, and people like Tim will remember this guy very well. His name was O'Halpine, with good Irish name, and I think his dad was from Cork and his mother was from Fiji or somewhere out there. So he had the kind of build of a rugby player plus a regular hurling player, and it was just fantastic to see this guy play. And you know, thank God Ireland is still a great place to go, regardless of your background and your colour. And thank God at the moment, football, you know, we're not seeing too much of it. I have heard a few comments from people about why do people take the knee, and you know, and obviously they're deliberately trying not to understand why we're actually doing that, and that's it's probably pointless explaining it to them because it's all over the sort of media. But yeah, I mean, I have to be honest though, I came into football as a football supporter on the back of England winning the World Cup in '66. You know, I got into it then and I really enjoyed it. But that was the last time England were any good, I think. I mean, there's
Terry, what you say? It's a fair point. It's a fair point because I remember going back to when France won their World Cup in '98. Oh, was it '98? Yeah, it was '98. '98, and how it kind of like galvanized the whole country because although it was France's success, it was, you know, you saw that a lot of the players were you know, up and down in terms of minority. So it kind of like galvanized France, and then France went on to do the Euros, and everyone's favorite team was French. Of course, you know, we had Thierry Henry and Emile Petit and Patrick Vieira, let alone Sylvain Wiltord. So for us, it was like, you know, their success was our success. But if you look at the way England plays, you know, everyone's still, unfortunately, still stuck in '66. And although we have, you know, great songs and we have great moments, they're not consistent with the way the team. And I think most of the time it is down to the managers. The managers tend to pick their favourites, and you can see it borne out for our team. If a manager picks his favourites, then of course, what's going to happen? You know, its form would be temporary. So if you're looking at everybody else, yeah, England is still stuck in '66, and they won't be until somebody decides to put a good team together.
Yeah. Let me get into the segments of this morning. We've kind of gone off on a somewhere over there left field, but it's good. We're talking about football, and I'd always support Colombia over England any day. Anyway, guys. Sorry.
Parting shot.
This news coming from Sky Sports. This youngster. I've chosen this story because it's quite poignant about how careers can go off the rails. How your career as a footballer can go in many different directions. But anyway, this report says I was one of the good players. A 22-year-old player who was sold by Arsenal comments on Mikel Arteta. Steffi Mavdidi has revealed that he has no idea what current Arsenal boss Mikel Arteta would have thought of him and if he had still been at the club. The 22-year-old had been at the club since childhood. So we're talking about the age 6, 7, or 8. And he left for Juventus in 2018 after a little prospect of breaking through the side. But he left under Unai Emery. And he says, literally, I'm just thinking, what would have Arteta thought of me if I was still at Arsenal and I was one of the better players, in his own opinion? Again, but I just picked up on this story because I'm thinking, we know when players come to the academy, they're probably aged 6, 7, 8. They stay at Arsenal for the best part of maybe 9, 10 years. But their future is still not guaranteed. They might not see the first senior squad. But I thought, I'll pick up on the story here. There are players like Ainsley Maitland-Niles who came at Arsenal at age, I think, 8 or 9. Joe Willock, age 7, and they're out on loan. Tell the academy, is it working? Is Arsenal's academy working?
A lot of players coming through, and I saw Steffi play a lot of times. Forward, striker. He ticked a lot of boxes without being absolutely fantastic in any of them. He had a fair amount of pace. He had very good close control. He scored lots of goals. He had a good bit of football intelligence. He knew how to lay the ball off, where people were. I mean, he had a lot of things that were very, very good, none of which were excellent. But he did look good, and I was quite surprised that they let him go, because as we all know, between 20 and 23 is when the players really mature. And talking of Liam Brady, of course, we only got the fantastic Liam at about the age of 23. He went from being a good left-sided midfielder into somebody with the most unbelievable vision. And I was quite, it's what coaches are paid to do. They're paid to think ahead. I do worry that it might be attitude. Now, I don't know what Steffi's attitude was, but I happened to watch a replay of the cup final against Chelsea, our most recent one, and the ball came to Ainsley Maitland-Niles, and he absolutely outstripped. He was playing left wing back that day, and he outstripped completely the Chelsea defender. And then he was on the left hand side, and he came back onto his right foot and still had time to look up and play a wonderful cross, which unfortunately Aubameyang headed straight into the goalkeeper's hands. And it put in mind that we still have some great players on our books, but Arteta doesn't rate them. And I suspect it's attitude. I think Arteta, if there's one blind spot he's got, is he won't put up with people not showing respect and totally determined attitude. And it was those things that made Dennis Bergkamp the great player he was, and Ian Wright the great player he was. And without attitude, you kind of diminish your usefulness to a club, because they can't be pussyfooting around you when you've hit your 20s. So that's what I think. Sometimes you see players leave, and it may not be because of the skill factor. It may be just that the club think, no, this guy's attitude's wrong.
Okay. But then what about Xhaka? Even he's on international duty, Alto, and he's still commenting about the fan base. He thinks the fan base are picking on him, that there are other players who are far worse than him. I'm thinking, Xhaka, you're on international duty. Concentrate on that job in hand there. Don't be talking about our fan base, riding them up again, because you know what our fan base is like, Ralph?
Yeah. Just going back with Steph, the youngster, I think it's very difficult to. I remember when I was like 6 and 7, I used to think that my team was at the bottom or across the park. We used to live in Thornhill, so when I used to go to Thornhill Park, I used to see a bunch of guys playing in red, and I thought that was my team. I thought that was Arsenal playing at the park. So your perceptions of what you want when you're a kid. Could you imagine taking that and then you put into an environment where there's other kids like yourself, and you're coached day in, day out, how to receive a pass, how to attack, how to defend, what your roles in the midfield and everything. And you have that drilled in, and then you're with your family, obviously, and you've got your family is proud that particularly it could be your mum or your dad, take you to the academy, and then to pick you up, wherever the kind of like structure is there. And then from that time until you get to your teens is drilled in. Your expectations is the fact that you're living the dream. You're playing for the team that you saw on TV, or your parents' expectations that that you're playing for the team that makes them happy. And then to be thrusted out, as it were, from that environment to go abroad, it must be very heavily impacting on your mental well-being. That, okay, I'm playing for the team that I love. Also now I've been told I've got to play for another team just to try and prove to my manager that I'm of worth. And you've got all those kind of skill sets impacting on yourself. And then before you know it, like Terry rightly said, by the time you're in your 20s, if you feel that you've got a sense of entitlement because you've played in the system and you've done everything, you jump through every hoop, then, as we said last week about Balogun, you've got to have that kind of self-toughness, that awareness, and you've got to push yourself, because you see your competition. You may have live with them, you play with them, you talk, and then you have to compete against them in the same team just to get into that first spot. So I think on that alone, that's very impacting from 6 to like 16 to 23. Those kind of like pressures I think it's something that we don't really fully appreciate as fans. I know James Rowe, he tells us about the whole journey of a player, but as fans, we never had that kind of information until I suppose really about maybe 10 or 15 years ago. And then again, when there's been players who have written books, autobiographies, said about their experiences. So that kind of door has opened up more. So I feel that it is really something that we should take on board. It's easy for us to say that player didn't perform, he should have done this, he should have done that. But taking that into consideration, we have to obviously be a bit more aware of what that player is going through. Now, this brings me to the next point with Xhaka. Xhaka, we all know what Xhaka is. I was watching some old clips about when we did criticise him a lot. He was worth £35 million. And I was thinking, like, from the time that we've got him to the time where he is at this moment in time, has he improved the team? Has he taken the game by the scruff of the neck? He may be able to do it for his country, but has he done it for us on a consistent level? And I have to say, no, he hasn't. And I think that's where we have to be very tactile and very precise in our way that we criticize players. It's no good, the keyboard cowards who can put anything on social media because they set up ghost accounts and everything else. They never would come to the point of actually talking to a player and saying to a player how they feel. They probably would say amongst in a group, if it's in the stands, like we would have done back pre-COVID. But to actually say what you have to say to a player, how many of us would actually say, you know what, actually, you played pretty crappy today. You was rubbish. I can't believe you sold that pass. None of us would do that because we have a sense of moral center. Some of these people don't. That's the reason why they put those comments. And I think in a sense, Xhaka feels that he's been attacked more because, unfortunately, when you're captain, when you're showing that you disrespected captaincy, when you told the fans to do one, I'm sorry, but sometimes those arrows that you send out, they'll do come back. And it's just one of the things that you have to understand when you're captain. Vieira would never have done that. Adams would never have done that. Most captains would not have done what he's done. Of course, they make mistakes. And of course, we're human. But when you decide to attack one fan or one comment, you have to expect that you're going to get 10 or maybe 100 back. And that's just the thing that happens with being a captaincy. You have to bear that load. But you have to perform. If you perform and you give it your all, I think as fans, we're quite savvy. We understand that. We'll support you that way. But if you're thinking, oh, you know what, you're blaming me for this, well, then you have to look at your performances as well.
Last night, I did the evening show, and someone came up with a comment about the profile, the kind of captains of Arsenal past. Your Tony Adamses, your Patrick Vieiras, your Pat Rices, your Frank McIntosh. Those are of a gone age. And I said, well, that's the reason why we're having problems now, because we've not brought in players of that ilk with that kind of mentality. There's no leadership. We've said it so many times, Elto. I would ideally like my captain to come out after the game and say something rather than hiding, speeding off in his Lamborghini and sulking. But we need players of that ilk.
Yeah.
Real leaders of men. And that's why we're having problems now, because there's a lack of characters. There's a lack of real leadership at Arsenal. But there's one question for you, actually, that Des has just put up for you. Actually, not Eltel. It's the assembly. It says, Eltel, would you say the club develops the players' attitude?
Well, I think if it does, it fails. And I was thinking there, if hope Ian doesn't mind me advertising him, I'm sure he doesn't. There's a guy called Ian Scagnelli that I found on Twitter, and he's a massive Arsenal fan. And then I found out he runs, and this is a bit of an advert for him, I suppose. He runs a pitch and putt pitch club at Grovelands Park in Southgate, and I popped along there during the summer, having known him on Twitter and introduced myself, and we had a good old chat and so on. And he told me that Frank McClintock and George Graham live nearby, and they're always going past. And he has a little kiosk where you can buy coffee and stuff. And they often chat. And I was saying, while you were talking about captains, I said to myself, I would love to talk to Ian and maybe meet Frank McClintock and say, Frank, what's going wrong? Why can't we find captains? Why can't we find the people like you and Tony Adams that have this never say die attitude, Pat Rice and so on? And I suspect he'd say they aren't around anymore. Those kind of guys, they're very, very few. I think we've seen it in Kieran Tierney. Tierney's got it. Unfortunately, he's left back, although Scotland played him as a sort of a left centre back in their most recent match. And by and large, people tend to like captains to be either centre backs or central midfielders. But we see it in Tierney. But there's precious few players we see it in. On the other side of the coin, talking about Xhaka, he's got the hoodoo sign over Arteta for some reason, and we can all play with ideas as to why. I think he's a very conceited kind of guy. On the one or two times that my son has kind of met him and we've spoken about him, he's got a conceit. The thing is, he has, because he doesn't run around as much as perhaps he should, a bit one-paced, he doesn't get injured very often. He doesn't tackle properly, but he doesn't get injured. And what he does is he gives you a solid 6.5. He doesn't give you a 7. He doesn't give you a 6. But he's always there. And what he does is, and this is probably why Arteta keeps him in there, he sews the midfield together. He sews it. He gets control of the ball and he looks up and he seems to have that knack of finding space. And when it works, he can thread a good through ball. And Arteta, my God, he does love these vertical or diagonal through balls. He's even getting David Luiz to do it. He absolutely loves it. You've seen lots of our centre-backs have been schooled in that. Played a through ball, played a 40-yard through ball. So he does that. And I think that's why he's still there. He's obviously got a big following in the dressing room, which is why they all voted him in. And he's probably got a very, very big personality. But unfortunately, with a big personality has come arrogance, hence the throwing of the captain's armband and shooting a V sign to the fans or whatever he did. But, I think Arteta, if was probably at the back of his mind, he knows he's the first one he's got to replace. But because he likes this business of left-sided, right-sided players, he's going to have to somehow find a left-sided midfielder who can do a similar job. And yes, I mean, we all know he's got a mistake or two in him. About once every 10 games, he'll do something stupid, or he'll play a disastrous back pass, or he'll grab an opponent by the throat and he's off. So, he's got that in him. And he's very one-paced, of course, and he can't tackle, even though I think Arteta's tried to improve his tackling, and his tackling slightly better. But I think at his stage in football life, it's probably a little bit too late. So I would be thinking to scour the world for a left-sided player who's a playmaker, who's got that vision to play those balls. But of course, it's a bit like the Holland total football. You need midfield players who can tackle as well. Let's not have players who can only do one thing. Even Ødegaard was tackling back the other day. And in terms of what we were speaking earlier on about young players, I mean, the obvious one is Serge Gnabry. We made a massive mistake in sending him out to Huddersfield, and they hardly played him. And then by that time, his contract was up, and he went off to sort of Germany. So I think I know they do have somebody whose name escapes me in charge of loans, and they're supposed to watch the players play. But we almost made a mistake with Ashley Cole. If you remember rightly, he came as a left winger, and we were converting him into a left back, and we sent him out to Crystal Palace on loan, and he played blinders at Crystal Palace, and they put in a bid for him. And it was touch and go as to whether we'd sell him. And in the end, Arsenal kept him. And he has been, unfortunately, he left us in very controversial circumstances. But he was a homegrown left back. In the programme, they used to have pictures of him at 7 or 8, playing in tournaments at Arsenal and holding the cup up, and the guy was supposedly Arsenal through and through. But of course, the modern world doesn't work like that now. Players who stay at a club their whole career is gone, and they go for the big bucks, you know.
Next, second segment of news, that's in regards to the golden boy. Yeah, that is Martin Ødegaard. And the headline comes from the Daily Star. Should I bother reading it because it's from the Daily Star? It made me chuckle anyway. Liverpool want to snatch Arsenal loanee Martin Ødegaard, according to the Daily Star. No, I won't read it. No, because it's the Daily Star. So forget
that bottle top, as it were, over there somewhere.
So we're going to the last news segment, was in regards to Lucas Torreira, who's actually out at the left Atleti. Lucas Torreira will only return to Arsenal if he'll get some game time. Of course, why else would he want to come back to Arsenal? The midfielder has struggled on loan at the Atleti, with only 3 starts under Diego Simeone. Lucas Torreira has no interest in returning to Arsenal, just to warm Emirates Stadium's bench. Again, reportedly demanding game time to stay in London. The Uruguayan loan spell at Atleti is set to end in just 3 months' time. An experiment of all parties I'd like to see as a failure. Torreira has just started, again, just 3 games under Diego Simeone, and completed just once 90 minutes. Oh, my goodness. Lucas Torreira. And it's funny, you know, because we've still got like 2 midfielders. We've got 4 midfielders who are out on loan, Ralph. Eze Maitland-Niles, Joe Willock, Matteo Guendouzi, and Lucas Torreira. And all the while we're thinking we're lacking a midfielder. Surely one of those midfielders could partner party. What do you think, Ralph?
They could. I'm just thinking, how would it work if Torreira was to come back? I don't think he could be in our team. I think we seem to have just transitioned away from Lucas because, you know, of Ødegaard and Emma Smith Rowe. You know, I don't know where we could put him. I must admit.
Yeah, but I think with Emerson Rowe and Ødegaard, they're like will play like in a more advanced role, i.e., like a number 10 role, whereas Torreira's more like a defensive midfielder, the different positions.
But then, it was weird. I mean, he kind of like played. This is gonna go back to what we were saying about Xhaka. He kind of played well with Xhaka, if memory serves me.
Yeah, he's in
it's like, you know, when you have two halves of 2 whole ones, but if the way that they're together, it kind of worked. I don't know. I think we're just gonna have to bite the bullet on this one. I don't think we can make space for Torreira. He's a lovely player. I know he's one of your favourites. And there's only, for me, there's only been maybe a handful of games that he played in that of significant role. Of course, to go against them down the road is always going to be in my fondest memory. But I don't know. It's something that doesn't sit right with me. I think progression-wise, the way that we've got some of our midfielders on loan and they can come back, they can make a healthy bid for midfield. I think Torreira might have, unfortunately, missed the bus. I see. The thing is that I don't see him as a squad player either. He's demanding. He wants to be straight in. He's not a squad player. You know, he's one of the players. If he's demanded to be in any other team, I'll say yes. Or any other time, I'll say yes. Put him straight in. But I think we've kind of like transitioned from that period. I can't see it.
Wow. So I know your thoughts about Lucas Torreira. You just don't think he would fit in the midfield at Arsenal.
Well, first of all, I dropped out there. I think the International Space Station just went up.
I thought he was going to go and put your kit on there.
It didn't work. Get on that clear kit, you know. The thing about Torreira is he's a good small place player. That's hard to say. He's good in small spaces. So if you had a six-a-side, I think the guy would be absolutely dynamite. But he doesn't cover the ground. And I think we've now seen two managers, you know, Arteta and Simeone, have both said no, he isn't quite up to it. So he'd look better because I think he came from Sampdoria, didn't he? And the Italian league is very slow, quick, slow build up, sudden bursts of pace. And of course, in a slow moving midfield, he's very good if the ball's around him. So, do you know what? I think Arteta is going to have to bite the bullet and go for something like Bissouma, even though he's actually right-footed. And so he'd have two right-footed players in the engine room of the team. I do worry about Partey. People think he isn't fully fit. Well, I've gone back and spent some time looking at his previous matches for Atleti, and he's not a runner. He doesn't cover ground. What he does is he makes space for himself. So the opposition almost have to run into the part of the field that he happens to be standing in, and then they're in big trouble. And when he runs, if he does get up to speed, he takes 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 yards before he's up to any kind of speed at all. So I would thought that we need somebody who covers the ground. We've all been saying this, that we need a Bissouma. We need, what's the guy at Villa who plays with his socks rolled down?
Grealish.
We need Grealish because he covers acres of ground at immense speed. I think if you were to get a partner, it's got to be somebody that will do the running for Partey. If you look at him, it's not that he's not fit, it's that he just doesn't cover the ground. He's wonderful when the ball's close to him, but he won't go hunting for it. So we need to find a player who's happy to cover the ground, go hunting for the ball. And by the sounds of it, Bissouma is worth looking at because we know how he plays against EPL teams. Buying from abroad is all well and good, but you take a chance. And the final thing worth saying on that is Arteta doesn't like trusting youth. Unless he's really forced into a position, he will tend to go for the more mature, more experienced players. And Martinelli is the perfect example. Ødegaard has said the best player he's seen in the Arsenal team is Martinelli. So that's, you know, from the mouth of babes, there's a guy saying he's the guy that's really impressed me. Why doesn't Arteta play him? He's worried about playing too many young players. There must have been, maybe Pep got into his head and said, be careful you don't play too many young players. I mean, Phil Foden at Man City was playing really well and he kept dropping him. And it's only now he's a regular in the team. So I suspect that there's some of that. I mean, if we are all amazed at Martinelli's abilities, we've now got players coming into the club who are saying this guy is absolute dynamite. The only thing, let's keep it upbeat. Let's assume that Arteta wants to bring him into the team, but he wants to bring him in next season. And maybe he's going to do a deal with Ødegaard and let Oba go in the opposite direction to Real Madrid. You don't know. And the more Oba does well, then the more we have a chance of pulling off that deal. And at 32, although he's a wonderful player and at breakneck speed, I'm not so sure that fits into our current system. When we played 3 at the back, it did, and we allowed teams to attack us, and then you had lots of green grass that Oba could run into. We now don't do that. We pressure the teams, we push hard, but we've basically got a full defence in front of us. And that's no good for him. He likes to be able to run into space. That's one of the goals he scored for Gabon the other day. He completely outstripped this poor defender, went shooting past him like sort of Roadrunner in a cartoon and scored a lovely goal. That's what Oba does. And if you can't design your tactics around him, then cash in on him. Now is the time.
But I'm just going to compare Lacazette with Auba. Isn't Auba just too one-dimensional? Because if he's not scoring goals, what else does he bring to the team? Whereas Lacazette, on the other hand, he'll come deep, he'll defend, he'll link up the plays, he'll try to do the interceptions to put pressure on the defenders. But Aubameyang, when he's not scoring goals, it's obvious he's so one-dimensional.
Well, go on. I don't agree. I think Lacazette has been playing wonderfully well in this system, like a deep line number 9, and then he plays as an up front number 9. He lays the ball off. He comes back into midfield. He's worked well with Odegaard. Somebody spotted the number of passes between Odegaard and Lacazette. I mean, they are brothers in arms. They're constantly playing the ball between each other purposefully. But, and there's a big but here, have a guess who's playing for a new contract? Lacazette. We had this with Oba. We had this with Ozil. These players suddenly find another 2 levels of form when they're about to negotiate a new contract. So, be careful. Be careful. Personally, I probably think that George Graham, was it George Graham did it? Or Wenger did it, which is to put players over 30 or approaching 30 on a 1-year rolling contract. And actually, that's a wonderful test, because then you say to the player, look, we want you. You are doing a job for us. And as long as you continue doing that job, we want you. Now, that's a whole different mindset. I'm just trying to think in people watching in, we're doing all kinds of jobs in all kinds of roles. And in my job and in all of our jobs, you've got to pull it out every day, every week of the year, and the next year you do the same. And you can't say, well, I'm getting a bit old, I'm not really able to do that anymore, because that's you finished. So you've got to keep proving yourself, and that's no harm in it. As long as you've got to keep proving yourself, and I accept that responsibility in what I do, then you're fine, and you will always keep strong, and your strengths will gather strengths as you get more experienced. Unfortunately, footballers, by and large, seem to be in it for the money, which is why people like Partey came to us, even though we weren't going to be winning, we were not even in the Champions League. So it is about money rather than about players' love of Arsenal, unfortunately.
Do you want to say something, Ralph? You look like you're
One was about like the midfield. If we can get a Grealish, I can't see Grealish wanted to leave Aston Villa.
We can't afford him, Ralph.
I know there's a lot of talk at the moment between trying to get Odegaard from Real. We can't buy him. I've seen Ian Wright and quite a couple of other players saying, "Oh, we should put a bid in to buy him." But if there's no option to buy, of course, then the next option will be to extend his loan deal, get an extension, and then maybe at some point, depending on how it all goes. I think most of us was holding with bated breath when Odegaard was injured. It's like, oh, hang on a minute now, what's happening? Because I think the Lions went into meltdown when Odegaard was injured, but he said it was okay. So sigh of relief. But in terms of Lacazette playing for a potential payout or a payday deal, we've seen it too many times. We've seen it with obviously the number 10 and in the sense when Uber and Arin. The time when Uber was and Arin, I think Arteta had kind of lost control then, because he was very hopeful. It was at the end of a great FA Cup win, a good run, and he was hoping that Uber would sign, and the pressures were that Uber would sign. And I think that kind of like took our focus away from what's really important. What's the point? We've already been there before, and we've seen what happens. As soon as somebody signs the thing, the form goes out the thing. It goes out the window, because it's like, oh, you know what? Thank God I've managed to secure a bit of a deal. Now I can rest on my laurels. And we think, as fans, we're thinking, well, no. you signed to improve, to go a bit further, to show us, more what you can do, not to regress and go backwards. Now, if Lacazette is doing that, then what's the prospect of potentially coming up the summer? This is the question now I'm going to put out for you guys. Would you rather keep Lacazette or Aubameyang, or would you get rid of both?
There's a question. There. Oh, actually, what we'll do, we'll put a poll. We'll put a poll up at the end of this live show.
Yeah, purely because if we are thinking that Lacazette is playing for the contract, then if we're looking at previous histories, what's going to happen? He signs a couple of games, he goes missing, and then when we need him the most, he disappears or he comes late, and then it's down back to the current players to start pulling us out this quagmire. So, what do you want to do before, come the summer? Would you rather get rid and start again? Is that the reason why Martinelli hasn't featured as much? Now that goes into kind of like a contradictory thing, because if Arteta wants seasoned players, as it were, and doesn't trust the young players, at some point he has to trust the young players. I think his hand was forced with Saka and Emma Smith-Rowe because of injury. And yet they've managed to show, the senior members of the team what they've been missing. So Arteta's got a lot of weighing up to do. Do I put my faith into the youngsters? I can't overplay them because Saka or the likes of Saka is going to get injured. But that goes, it's part of the course. Or do I put my faith into Lacazette, giving Lacazette an extension, or another maybe 2 or 3 years on his contract, but then you've seen what's happened with Aubameyang.
Yeah,
I'll put that on the poll actually at the end. I'll ask the viewers once we've gone from this live show here. So those were the segments of today, and of course we've been just darting on different topics. But we're going to go into a live chat for the first time and see who has joined us. Patrick Kenny says, "Good morning, guys. Alex, I absolutely love the Colombian kit from the 90s. Carlos Valderrama, yeah, quite colourful. A bit of a blinding, yeah, the reds and the yellows, and yeah, Valderrama. What about Ralph's England top? Do you not like that?" I think so.
We're going to put that as a poll, are we? I reckon Terry might win that one.
Say again?
Terry might win that.
Morning, guys. Have you seen Thierry Henry has come off all social media till something is done about racism? What do you think? Says Des McLeod. Well, it's funny because I've been seeing how things have been played out on social media since I joined, and it's funny how people are saying that when you infringe copyright content, and we've fallen foul of copyright rules on the YouTube, and we got banned for 90 days. But when there's something in regards to on the lines of racism or hatred, that stuff doesn't get dealt with. It doesn't get dealt with. So I salute Thierry for standing up and saying, look, until something happens, I'm coming off. And by the way, nothing is going to happen. Nothing will happen. Tel, did you want to say something on that, Tel? Or
yes, because I've spoken to my son about this, and I've got very strong views. And although I am on Facebook, I'm on it to find friends and so on. But it is a horrendous platform, and my son was saying to me, "Dad, if you really want to, what they basically do is feed you your prejudices, okay?" And the reason why I don't see a lot of racist stuff on it is they've obviously worked out, as far as I understand, I try to look at people regardless of where they come from, their colour, their age, their gender, and I don't get that stuff, but I've got friends who get that. So my son was saying to me, you should pretend to be something and just see what happens. And he said, you will find stuff on there that is disgusting. And obviously this is what's happening to Thierry Henry. I think he's getting it on Twitter. And it is horrendous what's out there. We are living not in the age of information. We live in the age of disinformation. We're living in an age of massive distraction. What do they call these things? When they're all worried about nonsense, it's called a weapon of mass distraction. So You've got 150, thousand people dead with the coronavirus, and they're telling you some rubbish that's going on that you don't really want to sort of know about, but it's distracting you. So I can see why Thierry Henry has been attacked. I made the mistake on Twitter once of saying that my MP was, because I was at Islington, and my MP was Jeremy Corbyn. And I discussed, I met him at the Eastern Music Centre where his children used to go many moons ago, and I chatted away to him. He was just a regular MP, and we swapped a couple of funny stories, and I thought, well, he's a nice guy. And I didn't mention his politics at all. Well, Twitter descended on me. I've never seen anything like it.
Wow.
I was showing my son. I was getting hundreds of things in about how horrible a man he was, and he was supporting violence and all kinds of stuff. And half of them, I kind of looked at who was trying to, take me to, take me on. And a lot of them didn't have any followers. I think some people call them bots, or
Yeah.
bots, or I don't know who was botting me. But obviously he's that kind of instance, But you see, we unfortunately, I don't want to get too political, but we are living in a world of disinformation. And one of the things they do is they get you to blame things that have gone wrong in your life on other people. Always, it's other people's fault. And I can tell you now, I worked in a school near King's Cross, and we had a family move in from Middlesbrough. And unfortunately, they all had red hair, which I'm sure probably contributed to it. And they all had Middlesbrough type accents, although the mum was actually a Cockney. And the local kids on the estate couldn't stand these kids because I had one of them in my class, and he was ever such a nice little boy, and he was kind, but he had this really strong accent. Well, do you know what the people in the estate did? They burnt them out. They burnt these people out because they weren't Londoners, they weren't Cockneys, they had bright red hair which made them stand out, and they burnt these people out. This is what happens when you get ill-educated people who want to blame other, and they look, what's wrong with them? Oh, he talks funny. Oh, he's got bright red hair. And then you the moment you do that, that's a form of racism. Of course it is, and this is what the media unfortunately feeding. And what we're finding, Thierry Henry was quite right to come off all social media, but we are now in bad days where the media has become a frenzy of allowing people's small-minded prejudices to come around. And like, let's say that chap there, Des, he's obviously got, I think he's from the north of England, he's got a good Scottish name there. I would love to meet Des. Me, we're all social creatures. I love meeting people and chatting away. And that's part of the waft and web of why I like being on this planet. And that's why I'm involved in very much a people job, But other people would view, me with my London accent might cause a problem in other parts of England and so on. So unfortunately, there was always a little undercurrent of this when I was growing up, but it's big time now. It is really big time, and it's been weaponized, and it's not talked about unless somebody like Thierry Henry says something. Then it won't hit the newspapers. But we are living in tough times, and I hope to God there's some way through it. If we've got a beacon of hope, it's soccer and football, that we can have people from different ethnic backgrounds, different parts of the world, different colour skin, and everybody can support them and look beyond that, which is totally meaningless. When my daughter was in nursery, her best friend was a little African girl, and they loved putting on tapes and dancing, and my daughter would never have said this little black girl who's playing with me. She just told me the girl's name. She would never have dreamed of identifying somebody. Kids don't work like that, but it does creep in. Probably, Alex, you might agree, towards the end of primary school. It's pretty rare to see it, but certainly in secondary school, it kicks in big time.
Yeah. So just going on about you'd like to see Des at some stage. Well, Des has invited both Ralph and myself to go and visit him up in Newcastle. So if you would like to tag on once things are a lot more safer with the pandemic coronavirus, then you can come with us. Come with us to go and visit good old Des. Ralph, here's a comment there for you, Ralph. Raz, do you miss London? How did you end up in Cardiff? It's a long story. Boy meets girl, girl meets boy, end of.
Yeah, typically end of. Yeah, very, very long story. It's a very long story, but I have to say that despite that, I'm very appreciative of where I am at this moment in time. Yes, I do miss London. I'm not going to lie. I do love the cosmopolitan, the hurly-burly, as it were, because that's where I'm from. I always go back when I get the chance, as would testify to it. Unfortunately, due to COVID, I would go back down to London maybe once or twice a month just to see my family and catch up with Alex and my sisters as well, our sisters as well as my mum. And I go for long walks. It's easy to get on the tube and the underground. But Alex would tell you this: whenever I get down, the first place I always go to, because where our family lives, I have to I have to clear myself. So I go to Highbury. I walk around the Highbury fields. I go to the Emirates, take photos and everything else, because that's inherently that's me. But when I do come back to South Wales, Cardiff, Wales is a beautiful country as well. I've visited Scotland on a few occasions. I love to go to Ireland. I missed out on a chance on a stag do to go to Ireland. So to me, I haven't got. That's one of my. I say it's like a bucket list. I want to go to Ireland. It'd be good to go with Eltel, because I'm sure Eltel will show us all the sites as well. It's a lovely invite from Des as well to go to the north of the country also. But South Wales is a lovely country, and I don't wear this on a daily basis because it's like a target. But people know, when they listen to my accent, where I'm from, and like I said before, despite the experiences and everything, the people are very honest, and they're very sincere, and it's one of the few places I would say that, especially in the Rhondda is just like the outer countryside of Cardiff or South Wales. People greet you and do say morning. They actually say good morning to you, and it's something that I felt was a bit weird as a Londoner, because in London you don't say that. That more incites trouble than anything. But the niceties of the Welsh people, as I said before, I've got a few mates that actually banter me a lot because of the rugby. Wales won the championship, so I had to tread very carefully. But yeah, it's a lovely country. I'm not going to say anything other than that. But going back to the main points that Alex brought up about the social media with Thierry Henry. Social media, like anything, it's a positive sword or it's a negative sword, and unfortunately, it seems that we are at the point now where there's a lot more negative than positive. If it wasn't for his platform, we won't be conversing the way we are conversing. So that's the positive part of it. My daughter and her generation down, because of COVID, they've used this platform to interact with their friends, because obviously everything was restricted. So the only way of contacting your best mate, whether it's family or friends, is through this medium. So that's the positive part. I think the regulations, the bodies have the power to get rid of any negative and vile messages, but they choose not to.
Yeah,
it's a choice. You set a system like this up for the good, and you understand the loopholes and the way that people can get bypass the system, then you can spot them and take them down. If you can take down copyright, music or actions of football or whatever, any kind of sport, then you can take down vile, racist and homophobic stuff like that as well. So it's up to the bodies to do that. I think what I said that they won't do it. I want to be a bit more optimistic. I'll say that they can do it, but it's a choice. They probably feel that they're infringing on freedom of speech. There's freedom of speech, but when it's used to incite, then that's when the body should be able to come in and say, actually, no, we'll block you. So freedom of speech, you can say what you want to say, but if you're not inciting hate or racism or anything like that, then that's when the body should come in and say, actually, no, that's what it is. That's what we don't stand up for. So we delete your posts. And they can do that, but they choose not to.
I find it very, very interesting that, I've got like we've got 5 moderators, and the pace that I go at, also, every single time I'm doing content, I would need at least 2 moderators to marshal the live chat, and they have their jobs. They've been told what to do. They're within the parameters. Anyone's like using foul language or such a racism, so I've got those parameters already set up. So you won't see much of that now. So if we can do it here on this platform here on this channel, why can't all the other social media platforms do it there? They can do it, but they don't want to do it. They don't want to do it. And I feel so sorry for the fact that Thierry Henry has felt that he has to come off. He shouldn't have to come off. He shouldn't have to come off, because in the end, it's like they've actually won, because, all right, so it's one less person now. We need to go for more people. But he should not have to come off social media because they're failing to do a proper job by protecting us as human beings. But it's sad. It's sad. Nothing will happen. Nothing will happen. Guys, I need to
just one more thing, just to say that I think with Thierry Henry coming off and maybe other people coming off, you're in a sense letting those who incite that kind of like negativity and hate to win. I know it sounds it's if you stand in solidarity and saying, right, we're against this, and we're appealing to those bodies who hold those apps and those systems in place to start putting pressure on them, then I think that'd be more of a positive kind of way forward than just saying, you know what, I'm going to opt out. Because if you opt out, then you don't have any control. You're self-governing yourself, but you're not making any kind of systematic change in order to get that negativity out the way.
Yeah, can I just say, I mean, in schools, we are very, very hot on people, kids, if they come out with racist language, if they come out with unnecessary disparaging comments about other children. We're really hot onto it. We contact the child. Obviously, we interview the child, and we interview the parents, and we try to root it out at source. It's got to be stopped at source. And it's personally, I feel that it's not by accident that these things are allowed through. They are allowed through because as long as you get people angry with each other and able to be, to say the most disgraceful things to each other, then all we do is fight amongst each other and we miss the big picture. Just a quick phrase I'd like to share with everybody here. My dad was a wonderful man at dealing with any kind of racist or disparaging comments. And when occasionally somebody would hit him with some stupid, racist, disparaging comment, what he used to do was he didn't condemn them. What he used to say was, could you explain what you've just said? And then he hesitated, and the person who was making the outrageous comment sometimes shut up because they realized they were talking, very low grade insult, or they started to try and explain it, and then it withered on the vine because they realized the import of what they were saying. So that's his particular way of dealing with it. You don't go in their face and shut them down, because then that becomes an antagonistic situation. You say, would you like to explain what you mean by that? And a good example would be going to an Arsenal match there a little while ago before the pandemic. I went into a sweet shop, buy myself a bar of chocolate, and I went past 2 lads, about 17, 18-year-olds, one black guy, one white guy, chatting away to each other, mates, right at the corner of the shop, feet in the street, as it were. And then as I tried to come out past them, this elderly woman, white woman, went past and said, F off back to your home or something, your country it was, yeah. And I thought, what are you talking about? And I looked at these 2 guys, and my first reaction in London is to say nothing, don't get involved. But I actually said, I'm really sorry, lads. There are, there's not that many bad people around. And they went, no, mate, it's nothing to do with you. I apologise to not just the black guy, but to the white guy. Why should we be subjected to this kind of nut? She didn't know them from Adam, and she was an elderly woman bent over with like a walking stick. Now, how does that happen? How does that happen to a society that looks at somebody and chooses something? It could be the size of your ear, the size of your nose, the color of your skin, how tall. What an ignorant way to deal with things and to blurt out to absolute strangers.
Ignorance.
So,
ignorance.
It's ignorance.
Yeah. Right, go back into the live chat. Patrick Kenny says, thanks for reminding LTL. Yeah, Republic of Ireland lost against Luxembourg.
Sorry, Pat.
Patrick, that's nothing to do with me. That's
yeah, it's like hands up.
Wasn't me. This says Ronaldo threw the captain's armband on the ground after Serbia match. Only know from the highlights. And Fake Shake says, is Dangote finally going to buy Arsenal? Ralph, is he going to buy? I know he's said in the past that he's got like this oil refinery in Nigeria that he wants to concentrate on right up until 2021, but I think it's probably more like 2022. I can't see it happening this year. Yeah, it's not gonna
I remember when he did make a really bold claim saying, I'm going to buy Arsenal in 2021. And I was like, over my hands, I was thinking, okay, Kroenke's out, he's getting everybody else out and everything. And also, of course, with the pandemic and the way that finances has impacted not just the UK, but the world. Of course, he's probably thinking, well, hang a minute now, maybe the finances that I had in place to take them over are not. Let me just make sure that my end of things is sorted, and then I have to. It's like anything in business. It's never ever a straight line. There's always going to be a few hurdles and a few obstacles. But my only concern is that if he's as sound as he is, and as a fan of Arsenal, he's got to be a fan of Arsenal. There's no point us having a businessman to just pump money into a club and get all his players, and he's not there every match. He's got to be a fan of Arsenal. Usmanov was a fan of Arsenal. We would have been in a lot better place if we had taken Usmanov. And he's also got to make sure that that the people around the board actually support him. And then the other thing I would request is that there's got to be transparency. There's got to be a level where us as fans can actually sit round the table or the stadium or auditorium or whatever it is, and to see where the direction of the club is going, because we have an invested interest in this club. It's all good having, maybe rich people to help with the finances and the infrastructure, but it's the fans at the end of the day. So to have a transparency board where we can, as fans, can be invited. When you invest in pensions or whatever, you get like a summary sheet that tells you where your finances is going. Then that's transparency. So that's what I would like. I would like us to be able to sit around the table and say, actually, you know what? It's all good having this kind of like these ideas. Well, where's the money coming from? Who's going to be actually able to do it? How do you want me to play a bigger part? So I can have a more so I know that I can help the club go in the right direction. So a transparency, open transparency. So that's an AGM. But he's got to be a fan of Arsenal. It's no good having a businessman. We've got one of those. Look what's happened. We want a fan of Arsenal as well.
Right, Monty says, "What go on, Alex, Eltel, and Ralph? Big up the Cannon Photo to your family. How do you guys feel about Zaha not taking the knee a few weeks ago? Tell."
I didn't know about that. It's
apparently
Zaha they're talking about now.
Yeah, he's just saying literally it's not making any. It doesn't mean anything. Nothing's going to change. Taking a knee. So he's refused to take the knee now.
Well, do you know what? It isn't going to make any difference, unfortunately. I'd never thought of it that way. But there's too much power invested in different things in society. And I guess he's right in a way. Oh, he's just going to change his top again. I think you'll come back. On the Republic of Ireland shirt, we'd have to buy him one.
That's fine. Oh, okay,
yeah,
back.
why Zaha said that? Because it's not. I know it's winding up people. I know some pretty racist people, unfortunately, because I grew up with them, you know, in Highbury, and they want to know, why are we taking the knee? Why are we taking the knee? Well, unfortunately, you can have in this country, you can be in more trouble pulling down a statue of a slave trader than if you go and rape somebody. Well, come on, what kind of a world is that? Where you know, there are slave trader statues that the only place they should ever be is either in a museum or slung in the nearest river, you know. And anybody who sees that differently, I'm afraid you just aren't thinking. You aren't thinking it through, you know. And I don't want to get on my bandwagon, but I'm really not happy with this business, the way our country's going. And unfortunately, it's all about money and power and privilege now. So talking about Dangote, if he comes in, I hope he's so incredibly rich that Arsenal are like a plaything for him. Because if he's trying to make money out of it, we're going to end up the way we have with, with the Kroenke guy. I would like a syndicate to come in. I know that Flamini is making big money, and I would like a syndicate of rich guys to sort of come in so that their stake isn't that big, so they aren't desperate to make money out of it, but they're keen to see Arsenal do well. Yeah.
That's a good point, actually. Tony Kinder, good morning. Says Xhaka slows our attack down. Yeah, seen it for almost 5 years. Nothing changes. Patrick says that Kieran Tierney has to be a skipper next season. There's a recent interview with him and Footy Talk. I think I've seen it, actually. The lad oozes passion and leadership. And I've got Arsenal, Alex, morning everyone. Then Tony goes on to say that since signing Xhaka, we never made top 4.
Yeah.
I
think Tony's exactly right. I've seen that stat, and he does slow it down. And that's why we've got this crazy system now of we slowly squeeze into the opposition half, which means they've got everybody back, and we're trying to thread the eye of a needle, which of course with Ødegaard is eminently possible. But I do like the days where we, in fact, all the way back to Herbert Chapman. Somebody, a registered inspector here in Ofsted once, who was a Man United fan, said, "You're an Arsenal fan," because I'd introduced Tony Adams forward in an Arsenal program into one of my lessons, and and he gave me this book with a compilation of Daily Express articles by Herbert Chapman. And in one of them, it says you can have the ball too much. And what he means is if you allow the opposition onto you and they've got the ball, that's when you've got the green grass that your fast forwards can run into, the empty spaces. So Xhaka does the exact opposite. Xhaka, once the ball gets to him, I mean, it doesn't take more than 5 or 6 seconds for a whole of an opposition to go back into their defensive shape. And that's how teams work now. They work on defensive shape. They work on attacking shape. When you've got the ball, when you haven't got the ball. And unless you're going to get the ball like we did during the cup final and the lead up to it, unless you're going to get Aubameyang standing on the shoulders of defenders with plenty of the field to run into, which we're not doing. And Xhaka isn't helping it because he gets the ball and he stops and he looks around. It's no good. The one guy that actually does these wonderful, very quick forward passes is Partey. Partey can knock the ball vertically, straight through to Lacazette or Ødegaard, and he plays it very quick. And sometimes they say it should be the ball that does all the work. It shouldn't just be the players that are running like headless chickens. Make the ball do the work. And Partey is an excellent exponent of making the ball do the work.
Okay. So says, good morning, gents, and good morning to you as well, my friends. Ashley D, one of the other moderators, says, reports have it from Football Insider. Zidane does not want Ødegaard and would be willing to let him go. Okay, so that's a bit of news we need to keep an eye on. I know Des probably still watching. Des McLeod loves Martin Ødegaard, but we'll have to wait and see. What happens with that. Monty says, I think Aziz could take Xhaka's place, Ralph. Miguel Aziz,
Yeah.
23 player.
Like, you see, again, a really good young prospect doing it with the under 23s. Very forward midfielder, takes shots outside the box. You know, ticks all the boxes. But again, it does Arteta trust him? He's a young player. Does Arteta trust him? What's Arteta's game plan? His blueprint? You know, which players does he feel is going to take it to? As I said before, the mindset that us fans has been to try and get into the top four, and I have never been one to think like that. I want us to win, to go, to actually win the thing outright. Because then, if you don't win it, at least you're within the top four. And there's also, when you look at the way that Arsenal has been within the last 16 years, 17 years even, it's like we've taken top four for granted. We've taken being in Europe for granted. And look where we are now. You know, we got rid of a previous manager because we finished fifth or sixth. And now here we are, we're 10th, and yet, where are we aiming? What is Arteta's blueprint? Is it to win the Premiership, or is it just to secure top four? I'm not that way of thinking. I want us to win the Premiership, and yeah, it does take time. Don't get me wrong, but then the mindset of us is to go in to be competitive, to win, not to secure top four, because it slides us back down the pole again. So that's great. We could have Aziz in there, but what's Arteta's game plan? What's the blueprint? Who's he going to trust? Is he going to still keep Lacazette and get rid of Aubameyang? Is he going to get rid of He's going to keep Aubameyang and get rid of Lacazette? What about the players that we've got on loan? Are they part of the future for Arsenal? All the things we're still not aware of. So yeah, Aziz can be in, but then what's Arteta's game plan?
Well, I think
Arteta, because so many players are out playing for their respective countries and under 23 teams like Aziz, he did promote some of the youth players into first team training. And I really think he's at the moment he's got a chance this week and next week to have a good look at these young players coming through, and he will know that some of the 17 and 18-year-olds might be a couple of years away from the first team, unless they're absolutely superb, which maybe Aziz is. He's a bit lightly built, but he's got great vision, great skill. But I think he's planning. He's absolutely planning. He's very frightened. At the end of the day, if he gets 60 feet in a row, Arteta's gone. So he can't take a gamble too much. At the moment, as we said, he's playing people like Xhaka, when really we think Xhaka's days are numbered. But I do feel that he's had a really good look now last week and this coming week at some of our young players and making big plans. He's said already that when he plays Martinelli, it's not just about playing him. It's about redesigning the Arsenal players that are playing around him. He very much believes in patterns of play, which I do as well. Players should play these patterns of play over and over again so that they know where people are going to be. And even Ødegaard has taken a while to find out where people are going to be. But the fact that he's linking with Laka, who's playing as a deep-lying centre forward, is not by accident. They are working on this. This is what Arteta does. And with Martinelli, I really think it'd be interesting to look back at this video next season. I think it's going to redesign the way we get the ball up to our forwards, because this guy has got electric pace, but he's got to be running away from people, not running into trouble, because he's had a few injuries where he's run into trouble. Jack Wilshere, the same thing. He ran into trouble and they smashed him to bits. So he's got to work out a way of getting this guy free of people so that he can go around them with his fantastic pace. So, let's look forward. And I'm absolutely convinced that there's going to be some massive moves, not just players going. I think the early part of the pre-season will be lots of players leaving, and then he'll be bringing in players really quickly to build up First of all, I think Bissouma will almost certainly come in, or somebody in that midfield role, and then Xhaka goes. He will get big money for Xhaka, and all. You know, it's easy to work out which players have passed their sell-by date. But I think the big one might be Oba going to Real Madrid and Ødegaard coming to Arsenal.
Okay, let me run through these comments as quickly as I can. The guys in the chat have been very, very patient. I think Maitland-Niles could take Xhaka's place. Well, anyone could take Xhaka's place. I could take Xhaka's place. I think Aziz should be at least getting some minutes to see how he handles it. Gunnosaurus could take Xhaka's place.
The good old Gunnosaurus.
Leave Gunnosaurus alone. I would love to see Aziz and El Neni as a partnership with Ødegaard in front of them. I think Xhaka should be the Gunnosaurus.
He is one paste.
Morning, guys. How is everyone? Is that the exact time? Well, it was 11:45. It's now almost 12:30 UK time over here. What else? What else do we have? Right. Yes. So true, Eltel. About everything. About everything.
Yeah.
Auba thinks he's the main man for Arsenal. If Arsenal want to stress for the game, just Albert Braun Tarat, because this guy is very good. I've not heard of this chap.
No.
Yeah. Patrick says it all about most pros these days. Shouldn't professional players be given 100% in every game? Yes, they should. I remember being a civil servant back in the late 80s, and they had a PRP, performance-related pay. And if you didn't perform or you didn't produce the goods, you saw a little decrease in your wage. It never happened to me because I always gave 100%. But performance-related pay to me sounds like a really good idea with these players, Tel.
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, I don't know what county Patrick's from or his people, but you know, I know that the people in Clare who get to play for the Clare hurling team, or probably in West Clare for the Clare football team, Gaelic football team, they are honoured and revered, you know, and I'm hoping to meet through Tim Hogan. I'm hoping to meet a few of them, you know, and I just you know, when you go and watch your local county play, they are doing everything to try and, you know, win matches. You know, the rivalry between Clare and Tip is really massive, you know, and I don't get that passion, that 100% from professional players. You can see, and as Arteta has said, if he sees players hiding, he doesn't want it. And there are examples of Xhaka hiding. In that West Ham game in the first half, he was hiding. And if I can spot it and other people have spotted it, Arteta will have spotted it. I'm not saying he's going to drop him straight away, but to me, that fella's done. He's gone, finished. Get him out. Yeah. Just keep him in until the end of the season. But if they start hiding, it's a disaster.
Ralph, a question here for you from Monty. Here's a question for you guys. How many players in our first team squad actually play their hearts out for the badge?
Wow.
We're having trouble thinking of more than about.
I say, I know Tierney. Tierney plays his heart out.
Yeah. Saka.
After that, it's
Saka.
tricky to think. We're a one-man team.
Well, Saka.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Saka, yeah.
Emma Smith Rowe.
Yeah.
Lacazette.
It's all the young players. Well, Lacazette, as I say, I suspect he's got a contract coming, or he hopes. You know. But no, listen, I'm not bad mouth him. I did meet his dad once, and he's the image of his dad. And his dad was really nice to me, and he tried to speak in English, and I tried to speak in French, but we obviously got on very well anyway. So if he's anything like his dad, then he's a very decent guy.
Yeah, so Monty, we kind of struggled with the numbers, man.
And it shows as well, doesn't it? If you look back about, say, 10, 12 years ago, then obviously you'd be able to you'd be able to pick them off from the top of your head. But now it's very, very, very challenging.
Tony Gaming says, I had issues with a Northern Ireland accent while I was in England. What?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I had a
God,
friend up
no.
in a band. He was, where was he from? I think he was Dublin. And he was a bass player. And he said to me, I was travelling back from Watford into London late one night. And some skinheads got on the platform at the train station, and they asked me the time, and I'd said it. I told them the time, but they, even in the few syllables, they picked up his Northern Ireland accent, and he was in danger of getting a right belting until the train came in. So unfortunately, this business of it's racism. It's people who don't fit the image of that current group. So you can be intricate. I used to be frightened when I first went out with my wife, who's Irish, and I'd be around Dublin, which I didn't know well, and I'd be kind of a bit wary of my accent. But to be honest, there's so many people from all over the world, and certainly lots of people with my accent in Dublin. And in Clare, there's so many people in Clare who've got friends and relations living in London and whatever. It doesn't seem to be too much. I suppose you could always meet somebody, but in London, yeah, I've worked with lots of guys with northern accents, a very strong accent, and you can you can end up in a tricky situation. So that just shows you the kind of mentality of the people that are around.
Monty goes on to say, Ralph, spot on. The social media companies and YouTube could do so much more to stop these fake accounts and do some more background checks on anyone that creates an account. It's easy. It's easy. Yeah. They can do it, but they prefer not to do it. Orbit, how are you, Alex, Eltel, and Ralph? We're fine, Colin. We're fine. We're fine. Ralph and Eltel, did you see Aziz's disgusting goal for the under-23s against Blackburn? I did see a disgusting goal. It was fantastic. Asher D says, help Gooners, let's get a thumbs up. If you think Alex's roses are plastic. They're not plastic. They're real, geezer. They're real.
They're not garage flowers, are they?
Oh, dearie me. What's this? Or Alex and Ralph's Coneman. What? Have I missed something? I have missed something. Laban said, if Arsenal are mid-table at this time next year, then it's time to get Alex as manager, Ralph as assistant, or Alex as Coneman, and Eltel as a director of football. Well, manager.
Well, I'll be all right as director of football. Yeah, I'll be striding around the place, All right, boys, keep it going.
Definitely wouldn't want to be an assistant, but there'd be nothing more than actually getting amongst the players and seeing what kind of mentality they have. Yeah, and to actually give them a couple of digs as well when I play amongst them.
Yeah,
a little foul. Go on, get up. What are you rolling around the floor for?
Guess what, guys? We'll come to an end. We'll come to an end. This it's now afternoon. 25-1. An hour an hour and a half. Going strong on this morning stroke afternoon show. Wonderful comments, and been brilliant. Ralph will be back. Well, Ralph won't be back. He'll be doing like his Voice of Reason midweek, Tuesday or Wednesday. So look out for that one. I'm not sure. Are you going to be doing a Voice of Reason, Ralph?
Yeah, we're playing against Liverpool, aren't we? But it'll be next weekend. So so it'll probably be the following week.
Oh. Okay. All right. Okay. And the next time you'll see LTL with your Godfather will be hopefully tomorrow with James Rowe, Monday Night Chats, where we'll be talking about what we're going to be talking about. Oh yeah, Arsenal. We were talking about Arsenal. Yeah, we always talk about Arsenal. But anyway, guys, I saw the numbers kind of just fluctuating, just under 30 at any one time. Thank you for tuning in on a Sunday. My goodness. Guys who came to the chat, again, we didn't get to read all the comments. You guys are quite lucky because the podcast that I actually see, the presenter, they don't read all the live comments. Whereas on Canon 40 TV, we try and value your comments in the live chat. So wonderful stuff. Eltel, listen, have a good afternoon. Are you going to be walking around Arnos Grove Park later on today?
Absolutely. I'll be strolling around there. You know, if you want a game of footy over there.
Get your kit on. Get your kit on.
Get your kit on.
My bags going in goal. I don't do that running around too much these days.
A nice one, Ralph. Nice one. But all that,
Nice
I think you
one.
need to change the top, Ralph. Change the top. Anyway,
You know what? I had a Brazilian top, and I've lost it when I moved around. So Brazil is my heart team, but hey, listen, England is the team that embodies everything. So, but Brazil was of course of Dad. He showed me the one goal that still raises the hairs on the back of my head, which is the Ribonino goal in the 1970 World Cup. That to me, that's the definitive of a World Cup winning team. It's Brazil. But yeah.
Right, guys, so there you have it. So I will be back tomorrow evening with Eltel and James Rowe talking about Arsenal. And meanwhile, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell notification button so you can receive all the latest. Well, not so much the latest, but the news as we see it on Canon 40 TV. Everyone, guys, have a good afternoon or good evening wherever you are in the fantastic world, and we shall see you sometime tomorrow or later on this evening, wherever you are in the world. Guys, have a wonderful. It's difficult, different time zones. Oh, my goodness. Take care, guys. See you later.